Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet. My co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We just saw each other here a couple hours ago?
Yeah, we were both at today's Cavalry game, playoff match against York United. And yeah, here we are again, just a couple hours later.
We're going to talk about that match. This is our weekend recap episode where we go over the Calgary-based pro, amateur, post-secondary teams and talk about how they did on the weekend. And we're going to talk a lot about the Cavalry match against York United. And we're also going to talk about some U Sports action, some ACAC championships. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I think probably we're going to want to start with Cavalry, don't you think, Scott?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Hi, this is Tobias Waszewski. You're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So, Scott, as we've kind of referenced here, we were just at the match against York United, the final match at Spruce Meadows for the 2025 season. Pretty dominant performance by Cavalry FC.
Definitely. I would use the word clinical. They were ruthless in attack and they were pretty good defensively. Obviously, they let in a goal, but apart from that one blip, it was an A-plus performance today, especially the front four that Cavalry were playing with were very strong on the ball and very hungry in attack. So, yeah, a game that never really felt in doubt for Cavalry. They scored twice pretty early on, and while York did claw one back through a nice goal from Sean Hundle right before the half, Cavalry, came out hot again in the second half, scoring the third very early into it, and then Warshevsky kind of put the exclamation point on a very strong performance with a well-taken shot just before the hour mark.
Yeah, I don't know about how you felt about this match, but after that second goal, 17 minutes in, it didn't feel like it was over at that point. It sure felt like, barring a complete collapse, Cavalry was going to win that match. Now, I guess whenever a team claws one back just before half, that can always raise some doubt, but they looked really, really good out there today.
For sure. And I think I also want to mention that York did not look very good, right? This is a team that has really given Cavalry some tough matches this year, but this was definitely not one of them. I do think that York's schedule in the last week really played a factor in how lethargic they looked. They played their first playoff match just 4 days before this on Wednesday night out in Halifax. And that game went the distance, right? They went to extra time and then they had a penalty shootout. There was a lengthy rain and lightning delay that meant the game didn't even finish until close to midnight. And then as head coach Mauro Eustachio mentioned in the press conference after the game today, they had a tough time even getting to Calgary, right? They flew to Edmonton first and then had to have a connecting flight here. So I had a feeling that they were going to come in with some, usually the term is bus legs, but I guess we could say plane legs. And it definitely looked like it, right? They just didn't seem as sharp as they have in other games against Cavalry this year.
They seemed flat and they did not seem feisty. This team has always they always play with that edge, the dark arts and getting under the skin and everything like that. And I saw very, very little of that throughout the match.
No, I mean, there were still quite a few yellow cards actually issued to both teams, which I've come to expect whenever Cavalry and York play. But no, York didn't have that edge that they've had previously this year in games where they've actually come out on top against Cavalry. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, I think the weariness played a factor, but I'm not sure why they didn't have the same tenacity that we've seen physically.
I want to talk a bit about some of the tactical changes that were made in this match. Sergio Camargo out with injury. Instead of putting in a similar player to Camargo, Cavs tried something a little bit different. And do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, they had Tobias Warshevsky kind of operating as a 10, which is not, the biggest eyebrow raiser. We know that Warshevsky, he's even told us, right, on our podcast, that he loves to drift. He loves to roam. He likes to drift out wide. He loves to drop deep and collect the ball. So he's not an out-and-out striker. He's not a number 9 full stop. So I wasn't too surprised to see him deployed there. What was interesting was the fact that Kenija Elva and Tobias Warshevsky finally got to start together, because that is not something we've seen much this season. And it's something that Tommy Wheeldon Jr. was asked about in the press conference. And he kind of joked that it's been his secret weapon that he's kept in the holster for the last 28 games. We saw Kenija Elva and Warshevsky link up a lot. Elva assisted Warshevsky's first goal, didn't he? Or was it his second goal?
Yeah, I think it was the first goal. He assisted one of them. How about that for a non-committal answer? I don't really ever remember them playing in that kind of formation. So yeah, it was kind of a different thing and it worked good. And we learned a bit of information in the press conference that I think caught us a little bit both by surprise. And here's a little interesting tidbit for Cavs fans. What did we learn, Scott?
Yeah, this was something we should have thought was occurring, and we never really thought about it. But Warshevsky and Knija Elva communicate with each other on the pitch in German because most defenders in the CPL, I guess, aren't German, so wouldn't know what they're saying. That makes sense when you think about the fact that Knija Elva played in Germany for 9 or 10 years. So obviously he's fluent in the language. But yeah, he mentioned that during the post-game press conference that they were able to do that today to kind of make sure that the defenders didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we never would have considered that before, but it's kind of a cool bit of info. The other thing I wanted to talk about, too, about the lineup is there were some changes at the back. And we know that Bradley Camden-Fawo is out with a concussion, but kind of a bit of a surprise move at center back this week. Tom Field got the start.
Yeah, he hadn't started a game since July. Jason, you dug that stat up, and this was his first appearance at all since, mid-September? Yeah, Tom Field has been very patient in waiting. I know he's been on the bench for some games. I often see him warming up. But yeah, he got the start. He was kind of playing center back with Dan Klomp. Callum Montgomery was on the bench, as was Levi Lang, who came in later. But I know that Tommy Wheeldon Jr. singled out Tom Field's performance after the game, said he played great.
There was some question about, well, is Montgomery injured? He's basically started pretty much every match he could this year if he wasn't injured, but it does not sound that way. It sounds like it was clearly just a tactical decision. And I started thinking about this, Scott, and I think the one thing about Tom Field is doesn't really have the tendency to make too many mistakes. And I know that, Callum Montgomery, maybe his confidence is a bit shaken. He's made a few errors in the last little while. So I don't know what the exact thought process was behind it, but it's kind of nice to see when a guy like that has patiently waited his time. And then when he gets an opportunity, he shines. So kudos to him.
So we know who Cavalry will be playing in the next round next weekend. It will be Forge in Hamilton, Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. kickoff. Forge will be playing in that game as a result of losing at home to Atletico Ottawa just before the Cavalry game. So we've known that it was going to be tough for Cavalry, right? Finishing in third, they were going to have to win 3 games to retain their championship with the second and third games on the road. And we knew they'd have to be against either Ottawa or Forge. And we know that is now going to be Forge. And then they're going to have to win that. And then they're going to have to go to Ottawa because Ottawa will be hosting the final in 2 weekends from now.
If I had to pick myself, I like the idea of going to Hamilton first. They know they can win there, and Ottawa's been kind of a bogey team for them. And I think that starting in Hamilton, I don't know, if I had to pick, I think this is the way I think I like it more myself. Not that I think it really makes a huge difference in the end.
No, you're going to have to win both, but it is noteworthy that in their last 2 games against Forge, Cavalry picked up 4 points. So they know what it takes to beat Forge. There was a good comment made that Forge will be pissed off. I think Tommy Wheeldon Jr. said that. He said they're going to be like a wounded animal, I think is what the terminology he used. So it will definitely not be an easy game next weekend. As always, it's going to be exciting. And when Forge and Cavalry play, there's always fireworks. So it won't be the final this year, but it'll be probably a game worthy of the final.
That'll be Sunday afternoon, and we'll talk more about that in our episode later this week.
Hi, this is Miguel Da Rocha, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, Jason, the Cavalry game was not the only soccer you were at today. You were also at Mount Royal University to watch the Cougars men's team face the University of Victoria Vikes. And as it happened, this turned into a pretty exciting and dramatic match.
Yeah, it was just a weird happenstance. I was, planning on going to the Cavalry game, of course, for 4 p.m. And it just so happened that prior to that, I was near campus and I looked on my phone and I saw that the match was in extra time. And I thought, I'm just going to go on over and just check out the end. And I stuck around for most of the I guess, the final 10, 15 minutes. And then there was a crazy shootout.
Yeah, and Mount Royal won that shootout following a 3-3 draw. They won the shootout at the distance, didn't it? They won this one 10-9. So it went into sudden death, and actually it went all the way until the goalkeepers had to shoot.
Yeah, it got to the 11th round, and Victoria was shooting first, and the Victoria keeper skied it over the net and missed, and that was the first miss in quite a long time. And then Cougars keeper Strauss, I believe, he buried it to win it, and pandemonium ensued, and good match for the Cougars. They're now in the Canada West final, and they're going to face UBC, and they've also punched their ticket to nationals.
Yeah, for the third year straight. MRU's been on such a good run in the last couple of years, and they're keeping that going. This will be a rematch of, I believe, the last two Canada West finals. So definitely not going to be easy, and they won't be at home, right? So beating UBC is going to be tough to do in Vancouver, but going to nationals 3 years in a row for some of the players on that program who've been with them for a long time, like Josh Flaxman, what a strong resume they have, on their post-secondary careers. And speaking of Josh Flaxman, it was actually he who scored the equalizer to put this one into extra time, wasn't it?
The match ended after 90 minutes at 3-3, and Flaxman scored right in the 90th minute to put it into extra time. There are several players on this team that have quite a bit of experience, and they're probably relishing the idea of going to nationals again. And I think the other person we probably want to give kudos to this weekend was Chinan Chanda. He scored the other two goals today on Sunday, and he also scored one of the goals on Friday night when Mount Royal beat Trinity Western to get into this match for today.
Yeah, for sure. That was a 2-1 win, with Mount Royal coming back from a 1-0 deficit after Trinity Western had taken the lead through a Calgarian, Emmanuel Dan Adokine, in the 21st minute. And yeah, Chanda scoring to tie it up in the 72nd minute, and then Clement Guay scoring in the 87th minute to win it. So quite a weekend for the Cougars.
The Dinos men were also in action this weekend, and sounds like it was a bit of a heartbreaker on Friday night out in BC.
Yeah, they were facing the University of the Fraser Valley, and they drew 0-0, forcing the game into extra time. And then University of Fraser Valley scored twice in extra time. So in the 104th minute, and then right at the death in the 120th minute to end the Dinos season. Unfortunate for the Dinos. I didn't watch this, but I did see both of the Cascades goals on social media, and they looked like some nice shots from them.
Hi, this is McKenna Walker, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Let's talk about the women's division in U Sports. Let's start with the Dinos. They won the Prairie Division, and they had to play Victoria. They were able to advance, and the Dinos had one of their players who always seems to score a clutch goal when they need it, save the day for them in the 82nd minute.
Yeah, Sophia DiGiacomo. I'm not sure if she's the captain. I know she's definitely a leader for the team, and she's been with the program for a long time. So exciting for her to score in the 82nd minute, win it for the Dinos, get some vengeance for being knocked out of the Canada West Final Four by the University of Victoria Vikes last year at home. Great way for them to punch their ticket to the Canada West Final Four. They'll be facing Trinity Western next weekend, and they won't be the only Calgary team in the Final Four.
Yeah, Mount Royal Cougars, they beat UBC Okanagan Heat 2-1. And so they're on their way there too. So kind of a neat story here. Tamara Jurisic scored one of the Cougars' goals. And as we've established, she was the Golden Boot winner in Canada West this year. But then the winning goal was scored by someone who is kind of at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, first-year player, is it Darian Pluhator?
I think so. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't know anything about her. I had to look her up prepping for this episode. So she hasn't played much.
Yeah, but she scored her first goal, I guess the first goal of her university career to win this one. So very exciting weekend for her. And yeah, that books the Cougars a spot in the Final Four. Very tough matchup for them. However, they will be facing the unbeaten UBC Thunderbirds, who, as we mentioned in our last episode, Jason, not only went 14-0 this regular season, but did not concede a single goal. Jason, they won this weekend 1-0, the T-Birds over University of Saskatchewan. So they're now 15-0 in 2025 without any goals conceded.
Yeah, that's going to be a real tough test for the Cougars. But yeah, it's great to see 2 of those 4 teams left in the Final Four are from Calgary.
Hi, this is Christine Sinclair, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
And then in ACAC action, the playoffs were held this weekend, the championship weekend down in Raymond. I think we both had high hopes for the SAIT Trojans in securing the ACAC championships. We actually thought maybe they both could pull it out. Jason, unfortunately, just not a great weekend for the SAIT Trojans. And this really mimics what happened last year, where they were so dominant in the regular season and then faltered in the playoff tournament. So let's start with the women. They lost to the NAIT Ooks 1-0 on Saturday, which put them in the bronze medal match against Red Deer Queens, a team that I believe they had beaten in the regular season, but they lost this one 2-1.
It does sound a lot like last year where, the one game they really had to win, it didn't happen. So I'm sure the team is very disappointed with this result. I think you've had that kind of year. Your expectation would be to at least to make it to the gold medal match, I would think. But a tough end for the Trojans women.
Yeah. And on the men's side, it was pretty similar. The Trojans were taking on the NAIT Ooks on Saturday. They fell 2-1, put them in the 3rd place game on Sunday against Keano College. They did pull this one out with a 2-1 win. So the Trojans end the year on the podium for ACAC. But yeah, considering their top 2 ranking nationally heading into the playoff weekend, probably a pretty bitter result for them. And then, Jason, we can just mention that NAIT did end up winning the men's tournament. They beat Medicine Hat Rattlers in the final. So, great season for NAIT, and they'll be heading to the Collegiate Nationals probably next weekend.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links there to buy Scott's book. It's called Here Come the Cavalry. It's all about Calgary's pro soccer history. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media, such as Twitter or Instagram or Blue Sky, where our username is YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.